lovely people, it's Nicole, and today I want to talk about Love, Simon. Sorry, I made that joke in the last video I just filmed about this movie. But Love, Simon, which is the cinematic adaptation of Simon vs. the Homo Sapiens Agenda by Vicky Albertalli, one of my all-time favorite books. Let me just put that there beautifully on display. And this is my spoilery review for the movie, so if you have not seen the movie and you don't want to be spoiled, don't watch this, because like we're about to get real spoilery, both for the book and the movie, because I do want to talk about some of the things that the movie changed from the book, although I want to preface that with I am not someone who thinks that any deviation from the book is automatically bad. There are some things that they changed that make sense to me that I'm not upset about and I think work well for the movie. There are some things that it changed that I wish they hadn't changed, and there are some things that they changed that I get why they had to do it, but I still wish they didn't. So, you know, there's a lot of feelings. Like I said, this is one of my all-time favorite books, so I feel very protective over it, and I really wanted the movie to do it justice. I was able to go to a pre-screening in Seattle on the 5th. I did film a non-spoiler review that's already up. If you want to go check that out, I'll put a link in the doobly-doo or in the card thing. I don't know how YouTube works. But let's jump into the actual review because this has been kind of a long intro. The first thing I want to talk about is the humor in this movie. Like, dear God, I have not laughed that hard in a movie in so long. It was hilarious. I mean, it was mostly like one-liners, but it was all just like good fun, and it felt kind of like the Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Parks and Rec, The Good Place kind of humor where you're laughing with people and not at them. With a movie about marginalized people, it's very easy to make shitty jokes about those marginalizations. Especially, I was a little bit concerned when they introduced Ethan because he's more of a sort of flamboyant kind of gay. I was a little worried that they would set up what we've seen in a number of queer media where it's the normal, more masculine, kind of just average boy gay and the more like flamboyant gay being kind of at odds. I feel like is a trope that we've seen a number of times recently that's very concerning to me. And so when they introduced Ethan, I was a little worried that they would lean on that and maybe poke a little bit of fun at that. But I was pleasantly surprised to see that that did not become an issue, especially with the conversation that Ethan and Simon had outside of the principal's office, where Simon was talking to Ethan about how like being gay is like easy for you because you're like so obviously gay and like so out, and like it was never really a question for anyone. And Ethan's like, well, no, it's like people are still homophobic and like I still have my struggles and like my family still has issues with it. And I also really appreciated with both Ethan and Bram we were able to bring in some of the intersectionality. They didn't really talk about it all that much, but I mean both of those are black gay men, which like we have a lot of stories about white cis gay men. And not that like we need to stop telling those stories, it's just, you know, seeing stories about people who aren't just like that one identity is important. Like I mentioned, there were a couple little differences from the movies that I'm like not necessarily mad about. One of the things that I noticed that they changed that I don't really know why they changed because it doesn't really do anything is they aged up the characters a year. And the only reason I really noticed is because Simon had that whiteboard that was like X days until graduation, and I was like, okay, whatever. And then I was thinking about like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if they like did Leah on the offbeat like too? And then I realized they can't because they graduate at the end of the year in the movie, and so they didn't really leave space for them to do a Leah movie, which is kind of upsetting because like it's Leah. And also, if we got a Leah movie, we'd have a movie about a canonically bisexual teenage girl, which is awesome. So again, like, don't know why they did that. The only reason I can think of is so that they would have an easy way to show like the passage of time in the movie, but I don't know why it had to be graduation. I don't know why it couldn't just be like days till winter break, days till spring break, days till some whatever. Like, kind of continuing on to things that they shifted from the book, I want to talk a little bit about the relationship between Simon and Blue / Simon and Bram. I did really like it. The way that they did the emails I think worked really well. That was something that I was very concerned about from like the moment they announced the movies. Portraying a primarily written relationship over a cinematic medium is difficult, and it's not like they could write out every single email like Becky did, so I was very worried about that. I think that the way they did it worked well with them just sort of voiceover reading the emails. The way that they showed Simon sort of picturing each guy that he thought might be Blue writing the emails and like having that interaction with them was great and really funny and a good way to get inside Simon's head. But I will say that because we didn't get to read all of the emails and we didn't get to go as in-depth into the things that they're saying to each other, it did feel like the relationship between him and Blue wasn't as deep as it was in the book. And this is something that I wish it could have been better, but like I don't know how they could have done it better just because of the medium. Translating it in the first place, I think it was difficult enough, and I think they did a good enough job. But you know, we didn't get all the same inside jokes. I was slightly bitter that they seriously downplayed Simon's Oreo obsession and like gave it to Bram. Again, it's just one of those like little things that I'm like, it would have been so easy to fix. But they still had Oreos in the background of Simon's bedroom a lot. So I guess it's okay. But again, because we didn't get to go as in-depth with the emails, we were missing a number of those inside jokes, some of which they did reference kind of subtly. Like, we didn't really talk about Simon's Elliott Smith obsession, but like we did see him in the Elliott Smith shirt. You know, we didn't hear Bram talk about his whole nausea thing, which was okay because then they also changed the reveal, which I'll talk about in a sec. I have a lot of feelings about that. But you know, it's just those little moments, little inside jokes that kind of came back in the end of the book that we never really got in the first place in the movie. Made the relationship feel a little bit less deep and connected. Again, not that the relationship in the movie was bad. It was good and I did enjoy it. I just, you know, the relationship in the book feels like more because we got to see more. But Bram, played by Keenan Lonsdale, was adorable. I absolutely love Keenan Lonsdale. I was so excited when they announced him because he's one of my faves and like he's actually bi in real life. I feel like we got more Bram before the reveal but less Bram after, which is because they cut like the last like 50 pages of the book. I understand why they did it. I mean, we got more Bram before the reveal, which is good because I was concerned because in the book we like only got very brief glimpses of Bram until the reveal. And then we got really to know Bram. But in this at least we did get to know Bram before the reveal. But post-reveal, they just like ended the movie. There was like one brief wrap-up scene and then the movie ended. Whereas in the book, we got another like 50 pages of like Bram and Simon's first date and Bram and Simon like sitting next to each other in class and the whole like talent show thing where they went to go like hang out and hook up in Simon's room afterwards. I get why they did it, I just wish they hadn't had to. The like cinematic beats that a movie has to hit are different than the ones that a book has to hit. And with a book, I think there's more space to have that like wrap up afterwards. I also think that they shifted the tone and the focus of the movie from the book was more focused on the romance with the coming out as more of a very prominent secondary plot, whereas the movie was more focused on the coming out with the romance as a prominent secondary plot. And so because they shifted that attention, that meant that the climax of the story was Simon being outed as opposed to the Blue reveal, whereas in the book, Simon being outed was like a big part and like a big thing that happened, but the climax of the story was the Blue reveal, and therefore for the movie the falling action was the Blue reveal and the happily ever after, but in the book the falling action and the conclusion was Simon and Blue being cute as a couple. And that's one of the things I really loved about the book, because I feel like so often in romance stories, books, movies, TV shows, whatever, you see them get together and like their first kiss is like the final shot or whatever, and then it's fade to black. And like you never get to see them being cute together as a couple, which is so unsatisfying. And we got like a tiny little glimpse of them when we saw Simon like doing the whole carpool thing at the end of the movie. But I do wish we'd gotten to see more of Simon and Blue as a couple because that was one of my favorite parts of the book. Going back a little bit to the reveal, I have a lot of feelings about that. I didn't like that it was so public in the movie. And I'm gonna be talking about that in contrast to the book just because I really like how the book did it. I'm not like upset that they changed how the reveal was done. I'm more upset about how they changed it. The reveal in the book was a very sort of intimate one-on-one, and the whole situation of like Blue not talking to him anymore and like the shirt with the note in it and the text and like meeting up at the carnival and everything was way more dragged out in the book. In the movie, Blue just like deleting the email account functions well as to sort of condense everything and like be a really quick punch that like gives you that emotion. But because Simon didn't have any way to reach Blue, and like Blue didn't reach out and give his number or anything in the movie, that meant that the only way for Simon to reach out and like have that I want to know who you are, like meet, like declaration of love thing, whatever, that had to be very public. Also, I just realized while talking about this that in the book, Blue was the one who like initially reached out after they'd been fighting and like gave him the shirt and the number as like a peace offering, whereas in the movie it was Simon. Don't know how I feel about that yet, but it was so public. You had this whole huge crowd of people around the Ferris wheel, and they did kind of acknowledge this in the moment where someone was trying to like film it on their phone, and Leah and Abby were like, no, 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 no. But it, like, you had this whole crowd of people watching him on the Ferris wheel, which felt kind of invasive. Like, I get that they were, you know, supporting him and cheering him on, but for me it felt more like that was for the straight people watching to like make them feel better about themselves and be like, yeah, we're like cheering on this gay kid, than like actually a good thing for Simon and Bram. Because in a certain way, it was like publicly pressuring Bram to like come out and out himself. And like obviously if he hadn't done it, no one would know who he was. And like even if they didn't know it was like Bram specifically, they'd still be like shit talking him. And there's still that like public pressure to come out. It's like when people propose in public, there's this like pressure to say yes. Whereas in the book, this really sweet private moment between them, and they also were able to bring in the inside joke about how Bram gets nauseated really easily and is cute and funny. And with the Ferris wheel, it was like so aggressively public, and there were like people cheering them on kissing, and I'm like, okay, these boys literally like just came out. Give them some privacy. Like, they don't owe you their relationship. In the book, they had a conversation about like, okay, now that like we're together, are we comfortable being like publicly together? And that was something that they had to think about and talk through. And it bothers me that they weren't able to have that conversation. Although I will say the moment where Martin stepped up to be like, it's me, just to like kind of save Simon in that moment was really funny. And I was kind of surprised by how much I loved Martin in this movie. Like, obviously he's a dick and like fuck Martin, but he was very like well portrayed in the movie and very nuanced, because like, yes, he's a dick and like, yeah, he was blackmailing Simon and fuck him for that, but he wasn't like just a villain in the movie. He was also, you know, once people got to know him, he was kind of a funny guy, and like people just kind of needed to give him a chance. And that doesn't excuse what he did, of course, but at least he, you know, started to sort of take a step towards making amends with that move at the Ferris wheel and paying for his next few rides. Staying on Martin a little bit, the outing of Simon is something that I've heard talked about a lot. Gay characters being forcibly outed is something that I've heard a lot of people talk about in the context of like, don't see movies or read books that have this in them, and I don't quite agree with that. Like, obviously we shouldn't be promoting that like it's okay to out people, because like, no, it's not. And like, you don't know what their home life's like, and you don't know whether like that's okay for them or whether they were ready to be out. Like, you just don't know, and like that's never okay. But I think that they addressed it really well in this, and I really loved the scene in the parking lot where Martin was trying to like justify his actions and Simon was just like, no, fuck you, like this was not okay, this was my thing, this was supposed to be my choice as to like when to come out, and like maybe I was ready to be out, but like now I'll never get that chance to like know if I really was. I thought that was really good, well done. Also good use of the one allotted F-bomb for PG-13 movies. That's actually something that I feel like this movie did really well. The teenagers still felt like they were talking like teenagers and like swearing and making stupid dirty jokes and everything, and like even though they couldn't actually say fuck, it didn't feel like a, oh, these teenagers never swear because they're movie teenagers and they're perfect and proper. But they also weren't going overboard with the like, teenagers are gross and dirty and stupid and talk about their penises all the time, because that's something that I also get very frustrated with in movies. So the teenagers actually felt like teenagers. Just in general, I really loved the friendship dynamic. I really want to see Catherine Langford do Leah on the Offbeat, but like I said, they fucked up the timeline, so I don't think they can. Nick was adorable and hilarious. Abby was perfect. Alexandra Shipp is amazing, and like, she was at the Q&A after the screening, and like, she's the most beautiful human being I've ever seen in person. She talked about how Abby's the person that she wishes she was in high school, and like, same. Abby's amazing and wonderful and like so perfect to how she was described in the book. I also really loved Taylor more than I expected. We didn't see quite as much of her as we did in the book, but the thing that they added on that we didn't get in the book was like her confession at the end about how like she's worried that like her parents don't support her and like she's just kind of faking the confidence. And I think that that would have been more impactful if we had seen more of her in the beginning, because like in the book she's like Taylor, like she's like the classic like humble brag and like she's so beautiful and perfect, but like she's like low-key obnoxious about it. She's not like yelling in your face like I'm better than you, but she's kind of like the like a little saccharine, like sweet, don't worry, like I'm sure you'll get on my level soon, just keep working kind of thing. And then of course in the book we had that moment of like kind of redemption for her where she like fights for Simon against the bullies that I really loved. And so the moments of Taylor that we did get in the movie were great and I love her. I just wish that we'd gotten more. Kind of same with Cal, although I was glad that they took out the super awkward, embarrassing Simon telling Blue that he thinks that he's Cal. I get such bad secondhand embarrassment when I read that section in the book. It makes me so uncomfortable. I mean, there were a lot of moments in the books that were just like teenagers hanging out and being teenagers that like I get why they couldn't have some of those like smaller moments that didn't drive the plot in the movie, because like I said, there's a lot that goes on in the book and like a lot of things happen and you only have so much time in a movie. I did notice they cut Colton Haynes' scene. So there's a scene in the book where Simon goes to this like bar and gets drunk and meets this like older college guy who he kind of like flirts with, and the college guy kind of takes him under his wing as his baby gay, and I think they kiss, but I don't really remember. But that was supposed to be in the movie with Colton Haynes as the older college guy, and I'm kind of sad that they cut it, but I also like I don't know where they would have put it. But hopefully it'll be in deleted scenes because I very much want to see Colton Haynes. I think that's all I want to talk about in relation to the kids. Moving on to adults. The parents. The scenes where Simon was talking to his parents post coming out, on one hand, they were kind of cheesy. I did feel like they were a little bit, not like fan servicey, but kind of like predictable, exactly what you expected from the movie, and like they didn't feel necessarily like disingenuous, but if they'd been worse acted, I think they would have. I will say though, even though they were kind of cliche, I still think that they're very important, and that having those conversations and hearing, you know, from Simon's mom, like, you deserve a great love story, I think that's really important, especially for younger queer people to hear. And Simon mentions earlier in the movie that like he knows if he came out to his parents, they'd be okay with it. You know, his mom's super liberal and his dad's great. Like, he doesn't think if he came out his parents would like disown him. But he's still scared, and I think that that's an important conversation to have because you don't really get that conversation a lot. You hear the extremes of the parents who are horrible when people come out, or the parents who are like, well duh, we already knew, and like no one's scared to come out to them. But like Simon's experience talking about that, like that was my experience. Like, I knew my parents were like very liberal and very queer friendly, and I knew that they would get it, but like it's still terrifying, and that's something that it's very hard to explain to someone who hasn't experienced it. So I'm really glad that they included that. Also, Jennifer Garner's monologue, tears. Again, like I said, those scenes were cheesy, but they still made me cry. Her talking about like, it feels like you've been holding your breath all these years. You can exhale now. That hit me so hard. Like, seriously considering tattooing it hard. That like, it's okay. I know you've been terrified about this for so long. We're here to help you. Like, you're okay. We love you. You can breathe again. That was so powerful for me. I'm not quite sure how I feel about Nora. I mean, like, I get that they cut Alice for time, but they cut Alice and aged down Nora. I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, like, Nora was great in the movie. She just kind of like isn't quite as involved as she is in the book, because in the book she's closer to Simon's age, so you get like she's in Leo's band at the end and stuff, and she'll be a bigger part of the next book. And so I think Nora was good in the movie. She was just different. Although I did think that the whole cooking thing and like the repeated image of like Simon coming down and like eating what she's cooking and the family pretending to like it if it wasn't good was really cute and sweet, and just one of those great like family moments that felt really real. So this has been a very long, rambly thing. I don't know how I'm gonna edit it together, but I shall try. But overall, I did really, really love this movie. It's something that I know I'm gonna go see again as soon as it's out in theaters, that I'm gonna buy as soon as it's available for purchase, digital or physical, that I'll watch over and over and over again whenever I need something to make me laugh or smile. If you've seen it or you haven't seen it or whatever, go tell your friends to see it. I really want this movie to do well so that Hollywood knows that these stories are important and we want to hear them and we want more of them, because as much as we can tweet at producers and movie studios and directors and stuff and tell them we want more stories, at the end of the day, what's important to the industry is the money. So we need to support this movie. We need to go see it. We need to tell all our friends about it. You know, word of mouth is so important for movies like this. I think it is genuinely good representation. Yes, the book is written by a straight person. Yes, Simon's played by someone who's straight, but Becky has talked a lot, both in the acknowledgements of the book and elsewhere, about the importance of, while you're writing people who are not of your identity, to talk to people who are of that identity, you know, get their feedback, listen to their experiences, and really be respectful of that. And the director of the movie is gay, a number of the actors are gay, a lot of people involved are queer, and I'm pretty sure I just read an interview where Nick Robinson said that while filming the movie his brother came out to him. So the people making this movie so clearly really cared about getting this right and being true and genuine and honest about this experience and portraying it in a really respectful way and just celebrating people's individual identities. And I think it was really well done. I highly recommend people go see it and go bring their friends and tell their friends and go see it multiple times and go buy it everywhere else that you can. Buy merch that's available. I'll leave a link to the shop in the doobly-doo, because it really is just a wonderful story and I love it so much. But let me know what you guys thought in the comments. I'd love to hear your feedback and I'd love to talk to people about this movie. We have conversations, figure out what worked for people, what didn't work for people, what people are excited to see for more queer romances in Hollywood, because it's so important and I'm just so excited. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. I love you and I will see you later. Bye!